Islam teaches that Jesus never died and couldn't rise from the dead. Christianity teaches he did die and rise from the dead. Which is true? Maybe neither are true. Maybe Jesus didn't exist, you could say, right? But what you can't say is that both of them are true.
I'd like to say thank you just for your ministry.
Yes, thank you.
The Lord's really used you in some instrumental ways and answering a lot of questions and relieving me of a lot of doubt in my faith. But my question revolves around a conversation I had with a guy on campus the other day. My evangelism partner and I were in the union. We were sharing the gospel with people. And it was a postmodernist individual. He really pushed this idea that all world religions are equal and they're strictly a means to provide hope for people who otherwise don't have hope. For example, maybe somebody in a third world country who just needs some sort of hope, so they just kind of cast this blind hope into religion, so to speak. So how would you go about navigating that kind of conversation?
Well, when somebody says something, it's not your job to refute what they say, it's their job to support what they say. So if he says all religions are just exist, did he say they're all the same?
Yeah, simply, well, he'd come in from all truth, so all religions are, it's your truth. It's your truth.
Okay, well, I would ask him, first of all, what do you mean by that? What do you mean they're all the same? What do you mean it's your truth? See what he says. Next question is, what evidence do you have for that position? And then third, I might provide some evidence back and say, have you ever considered that world religions agree on the superficial but disagree on the essential? It's exactly opposite to what he's saying. You've probably heard people say, well, most world religions teach you how to love one another. Well, that's generally true, but there are some, radical Islam doesn't teach that. Right. Satanism doesn't teach that, right? I mean, there are some exceptions. But even if it was true, they disagree on so much more, right? They disagree on sin, salvation, heaven, hell, creation, the nature of God, and the nature of man. Other than that, they're exactly the same, right? They disagree on the essentials, and they agree on the superficial. Why do they agree on the superficials? Because the moral law written on our hearts is written on everyone's heart, regardless of their religion. So they have this basic sense that they ought to treat one another well. And you would expect them for them to express that in their religious writings. But that's about the extent of the similarity. I would ask him, Islam teaches that Jesus never died and couldn't rise from the dead. Christianity teaches he did die and rise from the dead. Which is true? Maybe neither are true. Maybe Jesus didn't exist, you could say, right? But what you can't say is that both of them are true, because they're mutually contradictory. And so if he were to say, well, mutually contradictory things can be true, I would say, so you're saying they can't? And he would say, no, I'm saying they can't. So you're saying they can't? No, I'm saying they can. You see, I'm using the law of non-contradiction right now to say that mutually contradictory things can't be true, because every time I contradict you, you try and correct me. So I know it's easy to say all religions teach the same thing, but when you start to examine them, you realize it's impossible. They don't teach the same thing. And the only religion that teaches grace is Christianity. Everybody else is trying to work their way to God. In Christianity, God works his way to us. So I would just ask a bunch of questions. Do you have the book Tactics, by the way?
I don't.
Tactics by 𝗥𝗘𝗖𝗢𝗠, K-O-U-K-L. And those questions I just mentioned, what do you mean by that? How'd you come to that conclusion? Have you ever considered, are all in the book. And you can also, by the way, download our app, the Cross-Examined app, 2 words in the App Store, Cross-Examined. There's a quick answer section that has questions, those questions and other questions like them. So hopefully that'll be helpful. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.